Well, welcome back to the show. Time to catch up with our regular slot of historic places. And today, local Gore historian Jim Geddes will take us on a tour around Gore. Let's see how he goes.
Front of now is the former Gore Coronation Library. Now this is one of two significant buildings designed by Invercargill architect E.R. Wilson. This particular building was built with the grant from the Carnegie Foundation from Scottish philanthropist Andrew Carnegie. He actually fully funded this building, which was uncommon in those days. There were 18 Carnegie libraries built in New Zealand. Most of them received a 50% subsidy, but we had a mayor called Dougal Popplewell, the mayor of the day, who was a very strong advocate of library services in Gore and put pressure upon Carnegie to consider a full subsidy on this building. So it's quite a unique. It's one of our prized local buildings. It's one of two brick public buildings designed by Wilson. The other is the Methodist Church in Irk Street in Gore. Again, opened about the same time, 1910. It was originally designed to be seat 500 people and to have a spire, but as funds of the time were in somewhat short supply, they opted for a smaller alternative, but still a very handsome brick building of the era. Now this is one of Gore's key landmarks, and it's right in the middle of Gore, and it's not only a local institution, but it's very much a national icon. This is Flemings Mill in Mersey Street. It was established in 1878 to mill a large crop of wheat grown by the New Zealand Agricultural Company, and the mill later specialised in processing and processes to this day locally grown oats. Its famous Promoter brand was developed in the early 1900s, and mascot Sergeant Dan, as we see there, the Promoter Man, made his appearance in the 1920s. Although now owned by a large food conglomerate, the name Flemings is still retained, and that's from the time the mill was owned and managed by the local Fleming family. The mill has suffered numerous fires over the years and a lot of rebuilding in its long history. The earliest structure still remaining is the 1892 four-storied building fronting Gorton Street. The most significant feature is the 92-foot chimney, which dates from 1912 and was constructed by John Day of Gore using 34,000 local bricks. Now it's been awarded a Category 1 registration by the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, and it's the only building in Gore district which has been awarded a Category 1 registration. Okay, this is another significant Gore landmark, and this is the old East Gore Presbyterian Church in Rock Street in Gore. In 1880, prominent architect R.A. Lawson of Dunedin was invited to draw up plans for a church to seat 200 people. The belfry was to be fairly substantial, useful as well as ornamental. Now totara was used for the piles and red pine for some of the work, but as costs were a major consideration at that time, white pine was used in much of its construction, and this decision has since haunted church committees who have struggled to control the borer infestation in the softwood. Now it was opened in 1881, and it was only a few years later, in 1892, the church was extended to cater for a burgeoning congregation. A hall and Sunday school rooms were added again in 1962, at which time major renovation work was carried out on the interior of the building. The 51-foot church spire and steep roof were given a coat of paint for the first time since the initial coat in 1881, and have certainly stood the test of time. Now this building is a significant building in the respect that R.A. Lawson, it was the only wooden building that Lawson is known to have designed. He tended to specialise in stone, First Church Dunedin being a prime example of his work. Now this has been recognised as a significant building by the Historic Places Trust, and it's been awarded a Category 2 registration. It's really pleasing to see the adaptive reuse of a heritage building, and it's equally pleasing to see the redevelopment of a heritage building, and this is the case with the old first Gore High School building in Gore in Norfolk Street. 1910 seemed to be a fairly active year for architecture in Gore, and this was the time that this building was constructed. It was originally mooted that the Gore High School would be on the triangle in Gore, and it was moved to a site, the proposed site, which was on the banks of the Mataura River. And when it was opened in 1911, it attracted some very distinguished guests, and it was Sir Aparama Ngata who gave the school its name, Kura Awa, School by the River, and when he officially opened it. It was probably an unfortunate sighting at that time, because we didn't have flood protection until 1913. So in the great flood of early 1913, most of the school playing field was washed away in a fairly significant flood. So flood protection was enacted very shortly afterwards. But the school itself attracted a large number of students from outlying areas, and it necessitated the building of a new school, which was constructed in Cootes Road in 1954. The current building has been used by a number of community organisations, most specifically the Gore Repertory Society, who hold the Little Theatre in here, and it's a setting for significant theatre activity.
Well, there we go, an historic look at Gore. Well, stay with us here on South and About. After the break,